When I was 17, a boy handed me a love letter. Everyone thought I was lucky. But what no one knew was this. That letter was never meant for me. I only found out years later. And by then, I had already paid the price for believing it. Chapter 1. The air after the rain was thick and heavy, the sky outside glowing with layers of hazy orange clouds. Evening study hadn't started yet, and the hallway outside was already buzzing with noise. I sat at my desk, pretending to read, my palms pressed tightly together. It all felt like a ridiculous dream, but the suffocating heat from that fire, the panic, the helplessness, I could still feel them. Just like before, Chad's buddies stood at the door, laughing and shouting. "Hey, who's A in this class?" Someone asked me to deliver something for her. They held a love letter, a small bouquet of baby's breath, and a cup of milk tea, simple, sweet tokens of a teenage crush. The envelope read, "To A." If I hadn't been dragged into this mess, I might have even found it cute. My deskmate, Amber, kept scribbling on her math problems, erasing and redrawing the same line over and over. She was beautiful, even when annoyed, she looked effortlessly charming. No wonder everyone on the school forum called her the campus queen. The teasing around us grew louder. Finally, just like before, she turned toward me, irritation flashing in her eyes. "Hey, A, he's calling you. Don't just sit there, answer him." Her mocking gaze met mine. But this time, I didn't blush or stammer. All I felt was anger, burning, sharp, and long overdue. They were practically a couple back then. But to prove a point, they dragged me into their little game. And I, stupid, naive me, believed it was real. I thought that letter actually meant something. When in truth, I was just the fool they used to entertain themselves. If it had ended that night, maybe I could have forgiven them. But it didn't. Chad, trying to make her jealous, decided to keep playing along and started dating me. After that so-called confession, he came to my desk every single day. On hot afternoons, when the power went out, he'd fan me with his notebook. I glared at him, and he'd grin. "What, Anna? I don't even have the right to move the air toward you? The wind's doing it on its own." When I skipped dinner, he'd show up with food, insisting I eat. I was too shy back then to argue. I just muttered, "I'm not saying yes, to you." He'd chuckle, leaning closer. "Anna, saying yes to me and eating your dinner are two different things. You don't eat, I don't leave." He even started pretending to study, bringing me practice questions. His eyes, bright and earnest, always met mine. "Anna," he said softly, "I know we're from different worlds right now, but I'll catch up to you. One day, you'll say yes. Maybe it's just something about that age. How easily we get touched, how easily we lose our minds." I truly believed there was someone who liked me enough to change for me. I spent the last year and a half of high school trying to help him. Pouring all my time and energy into raising his grades. Just so we could end up in the same university. He knew everything, my shy smiles, my awkward glances. The way my heart raced whenever he leaned close. And yet, he simply watched me fall. Using my feelings to make another girl jealous. He used me to prove that she cared about him. And she used me to prove that he liked her enough. To flirt with someone else, someone like me, just to make her mad. Their twisted affection fed off each other. And I was the one they stepped on to keep their game alive. I turned to Amber, a faint, almost mocking smile on my lips. "I've never gone by A," I said softly. "My name is Anna." Amber and her friends loved giving each other cute nicknames. At that age, it was a thing. They'd pick names from the same initial, same sound, same joke. Back then, there was too much noise. Everyone laughing, teasing. And the two people who actually knew the truth chose to stay silent. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried just enough for everyone nearby to hear. Soon, the teasing shifted toward her. "Come on, Amber, just admit it. The letter literally says to A. Why are you hiding behind your deskmate?" Someone called out from the back. Her face flushed red. She slammed her workbook shut and snapped. "It's not me. Who would even like a guy like him?" And just then, Chad walked in, a basketball tucked under his arm. He froze for a second, his face darker than I remembered. Setting the ball aside, he picked up the letter and walked straight toward me. "Anna," he said, "will you go out with me?" The room erupted in laughter and cheers. But this time, it was already different. Last time, his friend had tossed the letter onto my desk. And days passed before Amber even spoke to him again. He only started chasing me to make her jealous. Back then, it didn't look this ugly. In fact, no one except Chad's friends and the two of them knew the letter had been meant for Amber. The original letter didn't even have a name. Just a clean, simple greeting at the top, to A. I thought he'd written it that way on purpose. A little secret between us. Something playful and sweet. But I didn't realize until much later. I was never the A he was writing to. Chapter 2. "No," I said, looking into his bright eyes with a calm I didn't quite feel. "That's okay. I'll make you say yes," he replied, as if it were nothing, like he actually meant it and was determined to win me over. At that moment, Amber's tears had already stained the pages of her workbook. Then the homeroom teacher walked in. She scanned the noisy classroom, glanced at the bouquet on the desk, and tapped the lectern. "What's going on here?" The room fell silent in an instant. Normally, the teacher wouldn't have been back for another half hour. So why had she come early this time? Because I'd brought her. That afternoon, I'd deliberately gone to ask a difficult math question while I knew she was busy elsewhere. She'd promised to come by early during evening study to help me with it. I'd timed it perfectly, made sure she would walk in on this little circus. I wanted the scene to get big. I wanted them to be embarrassed. In my previous life, Chad and I only got together after the college entrance exams. But during senior year, someone reported us for dating too early. The complaint letter went straight to the principal's office. And to set an example, the school made us stand on the stage at Monday's assembly and read a written apology aloud. That was the moment my dignity shattered. And it didn't end there. My mother found out. She slapped me across the face, hard, calling me shameless. She'd warned me since my first year of high school not to fall in love, saying that for a family like ours, studying was the only way out. I didn't know how to answer her. The aftermath of that incident followed me through the rest of senior year. I was trapped between home and school. Endless guilt, endless arguments. And when the college exam came, I didn't do well. Chad, on the other hand, outperformed himself. After all, I'd tutored him one-on-one for over a year. We did end up in the same university. When I handed in my enrollment papers, our homeroom teacher just looked at me and asked quietly, "Was it worth it?" I still remember the only time Chad ever said sorry to me. When he saw the red mark on my face from that slap. But was that the only thing he owed me an apology for? Through all our college years, he had countless chances to tell me the truth. Wasn't my youth real too? Didn't I deserve someone who actually loved me back? Chapter 3. Back then, I couldn't let it go. I kept wondering who had reported us. Even everyone else in the class became nervous. Because in a co-ed school, it's easy to find an excuse to accuse someone. Some students even planned to sneak into the principal's office and steal the complaint letter to compare handwriting. It was Chad who stopped them. "Forget it," he said. "Let's just focus on the college exams." During that time, he started visiting me even more often. He seemed unusually cheerful. And I thought he was just handling the pressure better than everyone else. Later, when we went to pick up our university admission letters, I passed by the principal's office. A few classmates were inside cleaning. For some reason, I walked in to help. And in the corner of the room, I found it. The letter. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Amber's. I froze. I'd thought we were on decent terms. Why would she do that? Reporting me, humiliating me, what did she gain from it? I picked the letter out of the trash and showed it to Chad. He only tried to calm me down. Maybe she just had a problem with you back then, he said lightly. But it's been so long. There's no point bringing it up again. I didn't say anything. He pinched my cheek and laughed. Didn't think my Anna could be this petty. Petty. After that incident, my mother brought it up almost every day. I lived under constant pressure. Under everyone's judgmental stares. And to him, it was just a trivial thing. But people are good at lying to themselves. At the time, I told myself he only said that because there was no point digging up the past. But now I wonder. When he saw that letter, did he think about the shame of standing on that stage with me? Or was he afraid that if everyone found out Amber was the one who reported us, it would make things harder for her? Just like how, back then, he started treating everyone to food and drinks. Not because he wanted to comfort me, but because I had finally served my purpose. He was happy. Because the girl he truly liked had finally shown she cared. I was too naive back then to even consider it. Who would treat other people's feelings like a joke? It never occurred to me that they could be that cruel. But looking back, their plan had holes. After the complaint, Chad kept buying milk tea for the group. Everyone took one, including Amber. Except hers always ended up in the trash. I thought she simply didn't like Chad. I didn't suspect anything else. Later, when seating was reassigned, I quietly told her I wanted to sit with someone else. I assumed we wouldn't be desk mates anymore. Instead, she acted like nothing had happened and sat next to me as usual. I even joked with friends, guess she doesn't hate me, she hates Chad. I told Chad about it too, telling him not to pick on other classmates anymore. I can only imagine how pleased he must have been to hear that. After all, once again I had proved the point. That the girl he pined for really did care about him. The more I thought about it, the more disgusted I felt. Who had I offended to deserve this? Falling in love and getting entangled with two such terrible people, what a mess. Fine. You like to play? Let's see who breaks first this time. Chapter 4. The teacher's gaze fell on the bouquet of baby's breath on the desk. Who's this for? She asked. Amber lifted her head, eyes red, and pointed at me. It's for Anna, she whispered. I couldn't hold it in anymore. My voice rose, sharp and deliberate. Are you done pretending? You really don't know who it's for? My words hit their mark. Chad's face darkened, his eyes turned cold as he glared at me. Oh, so that's how it is. No more pretending, huh? I wanted to see if he still had the nerve to come talk to me after this. To save face for all three of us, the teacher brought us to her office. Sitting behind her desk, she looked at Chad and said, "All right, explain." Amber cried even harder. Her family was strict, she couldn't let her parents find out she'd been dating. But she knew my situation was just like hers. And she still wrote that report. Still watched me stand humiliated on the stage in front of the entire school. Still saw my mother rush over in panic. Now, in the office, Amber kept her head down, tears splashing onto the floor. Her fingers twisted nervously, picking at her nails. While I just stood there watching, detached. Like an outsider at someone else's play. Maybe it was that indifference that provoked Chad. He'd always been confident. The kind of boy who thought a smile and a good face could win any girl over. He looked straight at me and said challengingly. It was me. I like Anna. This has nothing to do with her. At that, Amber finally breathed out a shaky sigh of relief. Unbelievable. Two people could really disgust me this much. Were they touched by their own love story? That to protect her, he decided to drag me into it. So we could take the blame together? So now you know how much I like you, right? I actually laughed out loud. Chad glared at me again, and I rolled my eyes. Seriously? You're moved by your own performance now? Tell me, who you like or don't like, what's that got to do with me? But at least try to act like a man, own up to it. Can you even swear that the letter that said Atua was meant for me? You sure you even spelled my name right, you illiterate idiot? Anna, no personal attacks, the teacher said, trying, and failing, not to smile. Like I was going to listen. 2 lives lived, and I was still stuck dealing with these 2 idiots? Honestly, at that point, dying again felt like the easier option. I let the anger show, even forcing out a few tears that no one could quite read. Who's attacking who, exactly? Teacher, I'm just trying to study. What did I do wrong? If they've got the guts to do something, they should have the guts to admit it. You can't just throw me under the bus like this. There are cameras all over the school, you can easily check who's been hanging out with who. I'm fine with calling my mom here to review the footage with us. I haven't had any contact with this classmate recently. The moment I mentioned bringing in parents, Amber panicked. She broke down crying. Teacher, it was for me. But I wasn't really dating him, I swear. I was just scared. I almost laughed out loud. And now Chad's face froze completely. So much for his little hero act. Taking the blame to protect her, pretending it was some kind of noble sacrifice. But now that she'd confessed, his gallant cover-up only made him look pathetic. Chapter 5. Chad froze for a moment, glancing at Amber before tightening his fists. Then he said coldly, Teacher, yes. It was me. I was the one bothering Amber. Please don't blame her. I couldn't help but roll my eyes at how fake he looked trying to sound noble. He caught it immediately. What's that look supposed to mean? He snapped, turning toward me. Teacher, I said pitifully, he's being mean to me. Chad's glare only grew sharper, his temper barely restrained. I ignored it and said, with perfect innocence. So, just to be clear, Chad only blamed me to protect the girl he actually likes, right? He didn't answer, but his expression said enough. I turned to the teacher, eyes glistening red. Teacher, we're all just here to study. But if I hadn't spoken up for myself today, what would have happened? The teacher sighed and put a hand on my shoulder. Then looked at the 2 of them. Whatever's going on between you, she said firmly. You shouldn't have dragged an innocent classmate into it. You both owe Anna an apology. 2 lifetimes later, I finally got it. Their reluctant, half-hearted apology. After that, I had nothing more to say. I left the office and went back to class. The next day, both of them were called in with their parents. We never learned exactly what happened afterward. But Amber was no longer my desk mate. Her eyes were swollen for days, she must have cried a lot. The funniest part came during the next class meeting. Our teacher brought up the whole mess again. Speaking in that indirect, pointed way teachers love. It's normal to have feelings at your age, she began. But girls, listen to me, when you graduate and find a boyfriend, remember that character matters most. If he's willing to drag someone innocent down with him, do you really think he'll treat you well in the future? And boys, if the girl you like can lie and accuse others so easily, is she really worth liking? For a math teacher, she had quite the way with words. By the end, Amber's tears could have wiped the desk clean. And Chad had glared at me so many times I lost count. My eyes hurt from rolling them back at him. Chapter 6. I never told anyone the full story myself. But after that scene in the teacher's office, everyone already knew. By the next day, the 2 of them had become the class's favorite joke. Chad, when's your next soap opera coming out? If you're not the screenwriter, I'm not watching. You gonna cry yourself to death again? Oh please, why are you crying? Didn't you start this whole thing, dating someone and then blaming someone else? What, feeling dirty about your own love story now? Careful, guys. She might point her boyfriend at you next, dangerous girl. Amber couldn't take it anymore. She burst out of the room in tears. Chad walked straight over to my desk, slammed my workbook shut, and threw it aside. Are you done yet? He barked, leaning over me, one hand pressed on the desk. His glare full of anger and threat. I slapped him. Hard. Before he could react, I jabbed my pen into the back of his hand. What, too scared to pick on someone else? My voice was cold, steady. Do I owe either of you anything? He stared at me, stunned for a moment. Then hissed through his teeth. Fine. You'll regret this. With that, he turned and stormed out. A few classmates, worried he might actually try something, offered to walk me home after evening study. I was a day student. My mom had rented a small apartment near the school so she could take care of me. We usually finished at around 9:30 at night. After hearing what Chad said, everyone was concerned. I just smiled and waved it off. He's still a classmate. Chad wouldn't go that far. Humph. If anything, I was afraid he wouldn't come. I wanted to see just how far his so-called pride would let him go. A few days later, one of his friends came to deliver a message. Chad wanted me to apologize to Amber. If I did, this whole thing would be over. If not, I'd deal with the consequences myself. I provoked them on purpose. What consequences? I'm dying to find out. Truth be told, ever since getting this second chance at life, there'd been a fire burning quietly inside me. Not just because of their lies, but because of all the years I'd wasted on him. The emotions, the time, the effort. The thought of revenge kept looping in my head, day after day. Then, one Friday night, as I was walking home like usual, I saw Chad's guys waiting at the mouth of the alley. Amber stood beside him, tugging nervously at his arm. Let it go, Chad, she pleaded softly. I don't want you to get hurt because of me. Chad patted her hand. It's fine. I know what I'm doing. He stepped closer, one slow, heavy stride after another, until I was backed up against the wall. Anna, he said. You're just a kid. Why play these games? I told you, if you'd just apologized to A, we could have ended this peacefully. I looked up at him, taking in the arrogance, the sneer. And suddenly, all those memories of our years together felt sickening. I'd once thought I saw something good in him. But that was just my own childish filter. He'd always been like this, self-centered and shallow. I shaped the words silently with my lips. You're pathetic. In the dim light, I saw his face twist with fury. You little, he roared, raising his fist high and swinging toward me. I closed my eyes and waited. Honestly, I wanted him to do it. But the punch never landed. It hit the wall beside me instead. For a moment, he froze. And I thought, just for a second, he actually looked hurt. That was when the police sirens wailed. His friends scattered instantly, though a few weren't fast enough and got caught on the spot. Chad looked at the officers, then at me. This was your setup, he spat. I ignored him and shouted, Officer, please help me. He hadn't actually hit me. And he kept insisting it was all a misunderstanding. That he'd only been trying to talk to me. There were no cameras in that alley. Still, harassment was harassment. He and his friends were taken in for questioning and held at the station for a few days. When the school found out, Chad was placed on disciplinary probation. A permanent mark on his record. Chapter 7. When I went back to school, I half expected Chad to come at me again. Honestly, I wanted him to. I was dying to hand him over to the police for real this time. But instead, he backed off, completely. He started calling me the manipulative girl. Telling everyone he couldn't mess with me, so he'd just avoid me. He said I'd set him up on purpose, that I'd trapped him. That rumor spread fast. Back then, palace intrigue dramas were all over the internet. So his friends started mocking me in their own twisted way, saying I'd plotted everything like some scheming queen trying to destroy him. That someone like me would be the last one standing in the palace. I clapped back right away.
Yeah,
Right. He's so noble. So noble he cornered a girl at night and almost hit her. And now he's mad because the police showed up? What, are we all supposed to accommodate his mental breakdowns? And for someone so simple-minded, I added. He's sure good at framing people. Scary, isn't it? After that, the gossip died down fast. Pathetic. They folded too easily. I'd been waiting for round 2. Chapter 8. Of course, coming back for a second life, I wasn't just here for petty revenge. My mom had saved every bit of New Year's money I ever got, all under my name, and she'd even given me the bank card. After years of careful saving, it had around 30,000 yuan in it. The password was one I'd set myself. Thanks to my past life's experience, I actually knew a thing or two about the stock market. And this time, I had foresight on my side. In just half a semester, that money multiplied several times over. I didn't hide it from my mom either. My dad had passed away early, and she'd been struggling to hold the family together. I told her I'd started by simulating trades. Then realized my predictions were often right. So I tried it for real just once. I came up with plenty of excuses to ease her worries. And soon she stopped asking questions. With that money, life became much easier for both of us. Then came the World Cup. And I bet big. Within a month, I'd made more money than I could have ever imagined in my past life. That's when it hit me. This was what being reborn was really for. Making as much money as humanly possible. As for how I could remember most of the scores so clearly? Well, I had Chad to thank for that. In my last life, he'd never shut up about those matches. Chapter 9. In my previous life, I was always in the top 3 of my class. But only ranked within the top 20 in the whole grade. This time, with enough money in hand, I enrolled in one-on-one tutoring sessions. By the time we took the mock exams in senior year, I was already in the top 5 of the grade. Our school's strict attitude toward romance among students was partly because the region wasn't well developed. Most of our families were ordinary. For us, studying hard was the only reliable path forward. I didn't hold any resentment toward my classmates. In fact, many of them had helped me before. So I decided to use part of my money to sponsor a few students in need. At the same time, I even paid some teachers to run free tutoring sessions for the class. When people asked why I'd suddenly become so generous, I blamed it on my mom. Said she'd won a lottery worth 800,000 yuan. And after buying a house, she wanted to share the good fortune with everyone. Couldn't tell the whole truth, of course. Never wise to flaunt wealth. But within my limits. I genuinely wanted to help those around me. Amber and Chad, out of pride, didn't join the tutoring group. Though pride wasn't the only reason. Their tangled emotions were far from over. Even without me in the mix this time, they still couldn't make it work. It was like they could only prove their love by hurting or using someone else as proof of it. While the rest of us were busy preparing for exams, the two of them were still stuck in their endless cycle of doubt and jealousy. To make Chad jealous, Amber started dating a troublemaker from another school. Chad, furious, challenged the guy to a fight. And ended up getting hit so badly he fell into a coma. After that, it wasn't unusual to see Amber crying in class almost every day. Whenever other girls went to comfort her, she'd murmur through tears. I didn't mean for this to happen. I just thought he didn't like me anymore. I never imagined he'd actually go that far. But we were never meant to be together anyway. My parents would never approve. The more she talked, the more melodramatic it sounded. Like she was auditioning for a tragic romance drama before graduation. Maybe I'd become a little twisted inside. I actually found myself thinking this whole mess was, dare I say it, a strange kind of relief in the last stretch of senior year. Because the college exam was seriously, painfully hard. Only those two didn't seem to care. To my surprise, Chad came back to school after he was discharged. And of course, he started targeting me again. God, instead of playing the tragic romance lead with Amber. He lost his mind and came after me every single day. At first, during class, he kept staring at me, so intensely it made my skin crawl. The moment the bell rang, he'd walk toward me, step by step. My friends and I braced ourselves. I even found my fingers closing around a fruit knife, half-jokingly wondering if this counted as self-defense. Then he suddenly spoke out of nowhere. "Anna," he said, "when are you going to make up the tutoring for me? We've already wasted so much time." I just stared at him, completely speechless. Was he serious right now? My friends traded bewildered looks, mouths half open. Tutoring?
Yeah.
Sure. Maybe in his next lifetime. I had a feeling something was off. Maybe that idiot had somehow gotten a flash of his past life memories. But really, what did that have to do with me? Did getting hit in the head knock out whatever brain cells he had left? After everything between us, he honestly thought I'd still tutor him? I gave him a cool, flat look. "Do I know you?" He looked genuinely hurt, like I just kicked a puppy. "You're not the same anymore, Anna. Do you need me to call a doctor for you?" I said, deadpan. "Anna," he said softly, "I knew you still cared." "I'm fine now, really." Unbelievable. Fresh out of the hospital, and somehow even more nauseating than before. "Just so you know," I said with a mocking smile. "Mental illness is treatable. Ever heard of medication?" He froze, eyes flickering with that pathetic, wounded look again. Then he mumbled, "Sorry for bothering you," and walked off. Of course. The tragic hero act again. Instead of finding his fated girl from that stupid love letter to star in his next emotional drama, he'd come to me to embarrass himself. What a cheap production. Are they just letting anyone act these days? Chapter 10. I thought I wouldn't have to see either of them again soon. After all, there were only 2 months and 10 days left before the college entrance exam. But I never imagined those 2 months and 10 days would feel like a lifetime. Every day was torture, like sitting on needles, like choking on something I couldn't swallow. Chad seemed mentally off. He spent every day doing these self-satisfied, cringeworthy grand gestures. Every morning, I'd walk into class and find breakfast waiting on my desk. He'd be standing nearby, watching me nervously. "I remember you like these," he'd say. "If you don't, I can go buy something else." "Chad, did you take the wrong meds today?" I said coldly. "Stop playing these stupid games with me. Because next time, I'm calling either the psych ward or the cops, whichever takes you first." "Anna, how did you become so heartless?" His eyes turned red again. That chronic condition, red eye syndrome, apparently still hadn't been cured after 2 lifetimes. Hopefully this time, he could get a job and pay for real treatment. But my threats clearly didn't register. At lunch, he showed up again, this time with food. "Chad." I sighed. "Why don't you just become a food delivery guy? You're clearly passionate about delivering meals. Or is it your life mission to harass me personally?" "Anna, I just want you to eat well." I was losing my mind. When I didn't respond, he added quietly, "Anna, I get to decide who I care about, don't I?" At that point, I gave up trying to reason with him. I went straight to the homeroom teacher. "Sorry, my poor teacher, you didn't sign up for this. I'll repay you after graduation, maybe with a few good stock tips." I reported Chad for harassment and the homeroom teacher warned him a few times. He ignored it and kept doing whatever he wanted. In the end, the school had no choice but to let him study from home. Those final weeks were mostly review and exams anyway, and his probation was still on record. On his way out, he came to see me again, looking wounded and pathetic. "Anna," he said, voice small, "do you hate me that much?" I knew exactly what he meant. But I pretended not to. "What are you talking about? Keep this up and I'll call the police." Anna, don't you remember, he pleaded. Last time, didn't you want me to go to jail? How can you be so cruel to me now? Are you serious? I snapped. Who gave you the right to talk to me like that? Did I ask you to have people wait for me in that alley at night? Is your brain broken or what? Are you literally getting worse every day? No, actually, you just get more and more unbearable. I left him no room to argue. I still didn't understand why, after getting some flash of his past life, he didn't go back to Amber to replay the drama. Instead, he came at me. But if there was an opening to sting him with words, I wouldn't let it pass. He stammered, panicking. No, no, no. That's not what I meant, I just. But the rest of his sentence fell apart in his throat. Don't come near me again, I said flatly. You're exhausting. Then I turned and walked back to the classroom. Chad didn't stay. He left the school, tail between his legs. I thought that was the end of it. Until Amber showed up. So that was your plan, she snapped. Well, congratulations. You win. He's fallen for you. I blinked slowly. Was this girl for real? Did those two seriously think I was that easy to mess with? What, if I didn't explode, I must be an idiot. Is this really the height of your intelligence? I shot back. Congrats, you've officially expanded my understanding of stupidity. Why don't you two just apply to a drama school instead of rehearsing your daily soap opera on me? Is delusion contagious now? Are you both terminally ill from it? And what exactly did I win, huh? Winning what? Is that all your tiny brain can process, romance and drama? I wasn't even done when she burst into tears again and ran off. Honestly, one of these days, I'm checking both of them into a psych ward. It's a public service at this point. Chapter 11. The long, miserable days finally came to an end. The college entrance exam was here at last. Like everyone else, I was nervous and excited. Even though I'd already lived through this once before. But in my past life, I'd been the loser. This time, I was determined to take back what was mine, my dignity, my pride, my future. Everything had been going well. Until he showed up again. Chad, the king of self-dramatization, made his grand appearance at the school gates. Anna, I wish you a bright future. He'd skipped the exam entirely. Waiting outside all morning just to deliver that one sentimental line. Touching? Hardly. I looked at him coolly. Well, considering how amazing I am, a bright future's kind of expected, don't you think? But have you found a school for your retake yet? If not, maybe try a 5+2 acting prep program. It's clearly your shared passion with her. As your classmate, I sincerely hope you make it big someday. And maybe keep your drama on stage instead of dragging innocent people into it. Anna, do we really have to be like this? He said quietly. Do I even know you? He shook his head. No, you don't. Then he lowered his eyes, muttered something under his breath, and walked away. I adjusted my bag, tightened my grip on my pencil case and exam pass. And headed toward the test center. This life, I would live brilliantly. And on my own terms. Chapter 12. After the college exam ended, our class held one last gathering. Chad showed up too. While the rest of us were chatting and laughing over drinks. He sat off to the side, staring at me again, same old act, same bad vibe. I couldn't even bother to look his way. Still, not everything that night was annoying. Because I'd been reborn, and, well, a little rich. A few classmates who dropped out before managed to finish high school this time. I even told them that a kind benefactor was willing to sponsor their college tuition. An old friend of my mom's, now a successful businesswoman. Total nonsense, of course. The kind benefactor was me. My rule was simple, help people when you can, but don't cause yourself trouble. After dinner, we all went to a karaoke bar. To be honest, I'm a petty person. And since Chad insisted on tagging along, I figured, fine. He could live with the consequences. When it was my turn to sing, I deliberately chose a song he'd once taught me. The Korean ballad, I Believe, the theme from My Sassy Girl. He'd practiced it countless times back then, planning to serenade Amber with it. At our graduation party in my past life, he sang that exact song. For her. But afterward, he lied and told me it was for me. And I stupidly believed him. I even listened to it over and over again later, while he pretended not to notice, patiently teaching me how to sing it, as if he'd done nothing wrong. I took the microphone and started singing, keeping perfectly to the beat. Chad froze where he sat, completely stunned. His glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. But he didn't even notice. When the song ended, I simply said I had to head home, family matters, and left. Of course, he followed me. I walked ahead. He trailed behind. Neither of us said a word. When we reached the entrance to my neighborhood, he finally broke the silence, his voice trembling. Anna, you remember, don't you? Remember what? Are you crazy again? Yes. I'm crazy, driven insane by you. He stepped closer, trying to reach for me. I pulled out a stun baton, holding it up between us. Try one more step. I dare you. He raised his hands quickly, nervous. Anna, please believe me, I won't hurt you again. Ever. I laughed coldly. You're giving yourself too much credit. You think you even could hurt me now? Honestly, I'm just sick of you. Every time I think about you, I feel disgusted. Disgusted, he echoed, stunned.
Yeah.
After everything you've done, shouldn't you be disgusted? He was silent for a long moment, then finally nodded. You're right, he said quietly. I won't bother you again. He turned around and walked away. That was the last time I ever saw him. Chapter 13. Because I was given a second life, I carried with me everything I already knew would happen. A map of everything I already knew would happen. After the college exams, I took the money I'd made from betting on the World Cup and invested it across every industry I understood. Real estate, the internet, stocks, mutual funds. By the time I was in college, I'd already built the kind of fortune I never could have imagined in my past life. As it turns out, money really does flow to those who already have it. In my last life, I never believed in fate, gods, or second chances. But after going through this, I started to think maybe this wealth wasn't truly mine. Maybe it was just passing through me. I went back to my underdeveloped hometown, started businesses, built factories, and even invested 50 million yuan to establish a new school. I brought in more teachers, better resources. And slowly, the place began to change because of me. That, I realized, was the real purpose of my second life. With the knowledge I carried from before, how could I ever let myself be trapped again by something as meaningless as love and resentment? I was meant to become someone stronger, someone extraordinary. Chapter 14. It was many years later when I heard about Chad again. At the time, I was at the school, launching a new round of scholarship programs, expanding the list to 100 recipients. Some of my old classmates had come back as teachers. One of them mentioned Chad. She said no one knew exactly when his mind had started to slip. He went around visiting temples and churches, asking priests and monks whether people truly had past lives, whether a second life could really exist. And, surprisingly, Amber had stayed by his side all along. She told people she was waiting for him to come back to himself. When I heard that, I just smiled faintly. They were strangers to me now, irrelevant. Learning how to love was their lesson to take, not mine. As for me, I had my own path. I'd fallen in love again, this time with someone I deeply admired. A man who shared my passion for charity and building something that mattered. In this second life, I had no regrets. I was proud of who I had become.
Extra chapter, Chad's story. When I realized I had been given another life, I was filled with joy. In my previous life, I left Anna behind to save the girl I once believed I loved most. Anna died in that fire. And in the end, I never ended up with Amber. Somehow, no matter what we did, there was always something pulling us apart. She was never secure, always desperate to prove that I still loved her. Even after Anna was gone, she wouldn't stop asking. Now that she's gone, does that make her more important? Then she'd scream, fine then. Maybe I should die too. Those words hit me like a bomb. I lost control and slapped her. She ran out crying. I called her again and again, sent messages, no response. A month later, she showed up with a new boyfriend. I confronted her in a fit of anger and confusion and walked straight into an oncoming car. She ran to me, crying, saying she only wanted to know if I still loved her. Did I love her? That question had haunted us for nearly 10 years. Did she really not know the answer? I suddenly felt exhausted. I had to keep proving that I loved her again and again, in every possible way. Leaving a meeting halfway just to cook for her meant I loved her. Driving over 100 kilometers to buy her favorite food and coming home bone-tired meant I loved her. Getting into fights with other men who liked her, bleeding and bruised, meant I loved her. I was tired, completely drained. Night after night, my eyelids grew heavier. And somehow, in that quiet, I thought of Anna. She must hate me now. And she did, just as I expected. The girl who once loved me so deeply now wanted to see me behind bars. When I went to her, she looked at me as if I were a stranger. No warmth, no hesitation, only disgust in her eyes. I couldn't accept it. I wanted us to go back to how things used to be. But it hit me that I was the only one still standing there. The only one who hadn't moved on. There was no us anymore. Not in this life. Until that night, the night she sang that song. For a moment, hope sparked again. She remembered, didn't she? She had to. She was like me. We were both reborn. So she must only be angry about what happened in our previous life. If that was the case, I could make it right. Clinging to that fragile hope, I followed her home. And then, those words. Those words that still echo like a nightmare. She said she didn't want to see me. That just looking at me made her sick. She said she'd even dreamed of me. And in that dream, I was something vile, filthy, pathetic. I knew exactly what she meant. But was it really just a dream? How could a dream disgust her that much? Unless it wasn't just a dream at all? I couldn't tell anymore what was real and what wasn't. Thanks to what I remembered from my previous life, I repeated a year of school and eventually got into college. Not the same one as hers, but I chose a university in the same city. The city was enormous. Our paths never crossed again, not even once. A few times, I went to her campus and watched from afar. She was nothing like the girl I remembered. Bright, confident, dazzling. She'd outgrown the quiet girl I once knew. She was radiant now, someone I could only admire from afar. I didn't dare approach her again. Using what I still remembered from before, I made some money. Not much, but enough. And yet, it all felt unreal. Like I was living inside a dream. Any moment, I thought I'd wake up. And Anna would be there beside me. We'd be arranging our cozy little home together. She'd nag me to study for my exams again. But this dream never ends. No matter how hard I try, I can't wake up. Sometimes I even wonder if that past life was the real dream. In my search for answers, I went everywhere, to temples, fortune tellers, anyone who claimed to understand life after death or the possibility of living again. And to my surprise, Amber came back to me. She was different too. She no longer needed proof of my love. She just wanted me to be the man I used to be. But how could either of us go back? Once something turns to ash, it can never be made whole again.